Here we see one of the handful of Emma Frost figures in the Marvel Legends line, produced by Hasbro. It is part of the poorly received and ill-fated plastic-free packaging era of figures, featuring art from the comic book on one side, and a list of the other characters in the Chad Build-A-Figure line on the other. We can see Emma Frost, Fangs, Monet Saint Croix, Starjammer Corsair, Kid Omega, and Chamber. And when I say poorly received, we're just talking about the packaging, not the figure itself. So tons of articulation, but very few accessories as seen at the back of the box. So let's unpack. This particular design sees the former Hellfire Club White Queen / Black Queen on her turn to be an X-Men member as seen in the Astonishing X-Men. It comes with 3 accessories, although one of them is not really an accessory. It comes with 2 additional hands, as we see there. Open hand, closed fist, and Chad's foot. His right foot, leg, and foot. Cool. And also, really, what's really amazing is that the White Queen Emma Frost figure actually has high heels, and she is pretty steady to stand without the base and without the aid of needing to be propped up by her cape, which is really, really interesting. So there are swivel hinge ankles down there, no boot or calf swivel. That's something to note. Double hinge knees, which are pinless, swivel thighs, ball jointed drop down hips, no waist articulation, although the belt kind of comes up just a little bit, making you think there might be some there. There's also no ab crunch waist, as you can see. However, there is ball jointed torso hinge. There's no butterfly pecs, which typically comes in the more flexible characters like Spider-Man, but not in this one. There is no swivel hinged drop-down shoulders, which also typically appears on characters like Daredevil or the aforementioned Spider-Man. There is the standard ball-jointed shoulders. No bicep swivel, which is covered by her cape, even if there was some. It is double hinged elbows, also pinless. There's no forearm swivel. Again, I think some of that would be lost, especially with her cape anyway. However, there is swivel and hinged wrists. There is no ball jointed neck base, which typically comes on like the G.I. Joe figures and I think some of the Star Wars figures. But there is the standard barbell jointed head. So, my final impressions about the figure before we get on to the figure comparison is I think the figure looks pretty great. The skin tones are muted. That way it gives it a little bit more realism, if if you could really call it that. And part of my problem has always been I always felt skin should not be shiny on an action figure, if at all possible. And, they've achieved that there. The figure's facial sculpt is also a little bit severe, kind of mean looking, which fits the character for the Astonishing X-Men version of Emma Frost, where she kind of always had a kind of severe, judgmental kind of look going on in her face anyway. So I think this is a pretty good representation of that. Although the Astonishing X-Men art style was a little bit more stylistic than this, and I realized that they had to... it would be difficult to translate that into an action figure. So, in comparison here is Black Queen Emma Frost. And this is never going to stand, and I can't find a stand for it right now. But you can see that by comparison, this Walgreens version, much smaller, much larger. And the facial expression is a lot less severe. So we're just going to... I was gonna leave it on screen just lying down, but I realized that could look kind of weird. So what I'm gonna do now is compare it to another caped figure in Scarlet Witch from the Avengers line, and Tigra, also from the Avengers line, I believe. So both these figures have a pretty decent time standing, which is why I chose them for the comparison. They look all from the same universe, which is great because these are all 3 technically comic versions. However, I suppose the design for Emma Frost might be one of the more recent ones. Anyway, so there you have it. I actually have some issues with the tiger's legs. It's very difficult to move the ankles, and I'm afraid to just snap off a foot. So she's kind of setting off there. And here, as usual, and as I will always try to do, including a Spider-Man 6-inch figure scale that is basically 6 inches tall. That way, it gives some perspective if you were to display this in your collection, and you kind of understand where everything stands on the shelf and whether their visual styles match each other. Moving on, here is Trini of the Power Rangers, and you can see she's a lot shorter and doesn't match the style at all, so it'll look a little bit out of place if they're all going to be on the same shelf. So we're going to move both these girls away because I feel like they're going to get knocked over. And the figures that Emma Frost will not match with, G.I. Joe Classified. Just not going to work. G.I. Joe, the line itself is a lot more realistic, a lot more grungy, and certainly the size difference doesn't help, and neither with the Star Wars line. Beefier, chunkier figures, much more real world than the comic book adaptations for Emma Frost and Spider-Man. And you know what? Let's place this one and put in Tigra there. So so there you have it. There is Emma Frost. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you bought the figure, and let me know whether you've enjoyed it and who you're displaying it with. And hopefully somebody can share with me how to pronounce that character's name. Chad? Someone let me know. Thank you guys, and stay tuned for the next video.